When it comes to the UK, things are getting pretty bad. Now, I know that you hear that most days, and as a result, it really starts to blend in. So what I've done for you today is I've put together a list of the worst articles that we saw throughout the entire month. And as always, we start off pretty bad, and it just gets worse and worse. It really does. It's just awful. But we started the month off with this. This was a letter that came through my door. It's from the BBC and how they're giving me a 10-day window to respond to them. In fact, I don't want to give you any spoilers, but making this video, it's been a lot longer than 10 days, I can assure you. So I don't know where they are, but this 10-day window has come, it's gone, it's left. Do you know what I mean? It's like, what? There really is no incentive to pay it, is there? And the fact that they call me the legal occupier. These guys with their investigation, and they still don't know anything. But then we came over to this story here, and honestly speaking, I have not been able to get this out of my mind. So I put a Freedom of Information request in, and I wanted to find out about Transport for London's EV rentals. Essentially, how many electric vehicles were they renting? And they gave me the numbers as well as the ability to compare it against their combustion rentals. And as you can see there, in the orange we've got total vehicles, so 1127. And in the red we have electric vehicles, 15. And I gotta tell you, that's pretty hypocritical, isn't it? Like they're gonna try and get you to ULEZ and also off combustion. But when you look at it behind the scenes, they are doing none of it themselves. And that one there, 1,161 to 24. It's just, they're not taking it seriously. And I don't see why we should. But something which is getting taken very seriously are the housing needs of refugees. Because as you can see there, Lewisham Council, they posted a job listing 2 weeks ago where they were offering up to £83,000 for the head of housing needs and refugee services. And as you can see there, Lewisham call themselves the UK's first borough of sanctuary, where they're championing the rights of refugees and migrants. Like, forget about the general population. You know, the day-to-day taxpayers. I mean, apparently they're just not important. But when it comes to half the planet, well, housing them is a top priority. Come on now. Let's face it, come on. Then we saw this from the BBC as well. And this was from my personal Instagram account, where I was just scrolling through Reels and I eventually saw this. And what got me about this one, right, is the BBC will sit there and they say we don't advertise. You know, like that is kind of their thing. You know, they don't really have, other than bad TV. That's it. Do you know what I mean? That's their thing. That's what they do. And you can see in the top corner, it's sponsored. This was on Instagram. So they've paid for the ads. Do you know what I mean? They've paid Facebook. They've paid Instagram. And now people's TV license money is being used to buy adverts. When they specifically are not to be used to buy adverts. Do you know what I mean? It's just a joke. It really is. It's honestly, it is a joke to the BBC. But something which I do not find funny. I did laugh in the video, but you laugh at anything. But I don't find it funny. Is that white British people will be a minority in 40 years. That right there is awful. Like, this country has been built up over hundreds of years. To be fair, thousands of years. And after all of that, everything that we've built, the services, the infrastructure, entertainment, society, is now just completely going. And not only that, it's kind of a taboo subject to talk about, isn't it? It's like we're being driven off of the planet, but we can't even talk about it. Like, come on, this is unbelievable. They can talk about the numbers of animals being lowered, you know, like leopards and bears and that. But when it comes to our numbers, so whoa. You want to talk about your numbers? No. Dolphins. But whilst we're not allowed to talk about our heritage, I mean, we got British MPs here talking about, truth be told, if it wasn't for the translation, I wouldn't know what he's talking about. Because he said, blesses Eid al-Dada. No, he didn't. Al-Adha. That's what he said. And it's just like, your name's Tom. You're a British MP. What is he doing? Do you know what I mean? There's just literally no need for this. And it's something to do with celebrating, something to do with, I don't know, one of them. And it's just like, it's got nothing to do with us. And truth be told, it's got nothing to do with him as well. But I guess he just wants votes. But instead of pandering to that demographic, maybe the politicians should focus on simple stuff like our infrastructure. Because as you can see here, we've got potholes in Nottingham which are so bad that they can see the old Victorian roads. And it just goes to show that modern day infrastructure, I really don't think it's what it used to be. You know, the way that it's got multiple patches on it already to start with, do you know what I mean? Multiple patches. Meanwhile, when it comes to the Victorian road section, I gotta tell you, that brickwork is in alright condition. It's over 100 years old. It was something like 1903 that it ended. And again, they look a little bit weathered. But considering the top layer, which that's the most weathered road I've ever seen, they've stood up quite well, haven't they? But, you know, I mean, who has money to fix potholes when we need to give money to migrants, you know? We need to give more money to them. Because an MP for the DUP, he asked the Secretary of State for Justice, what was her cost of the department's language services contracts in 2024? This right here is for the Ministry of Justice, so to do with things like the police and courts. And it says for all language service contracts in 2024, they spent over £31.5 million. And that right there, we've got roads going back to the Victorian ages. We've got our people being outnumbered. We've got our society on the brink of collapse. And all they can focus on is just spending £32 million on migrants. Because they're not going to try and fix any of the economic problems, are they? They're just going to spend money on random stuff like this. And the very next day we saw this. And it's a response to one of my very own Freedom of Information requests. And no word of a lie, this is probably one of the most craziest dynamics that I've ever seen. Because the FOI was to the Department for Energy Security and Net Zero, which as you can see there is the one that Ed Miliband is in charge of. And I wanted to know what proportion of vehicles rented or leased by the department were electric vehicles. Pretty straightforward question. How many electric vehicles do they rent? And as you can see there, in 2023 to 24, 101 vehicles were hired, none were electric. Then the following year, it was 149 to 6. Which means that Ed Miliband is going to try and control your life. He's going to try and tell you what to do. Install a heat pump in your house. Agree with charging you £12.50 to drive in your capital city. But here they are renting 250 vehicles and only 6 were electric. I can't say it any clearer than that. In the public view, they tell you one thing. But when it comes to behind closed doors, these people do not believe in what they're saying. Those numbers there show it to you. There's simply no denying it at this point. But then the day after that, we saw another cash grab, with this headline here, where it says that Labour have been told to hit petrol and diesel drivers with a pay per mile car tax. I gotta tell you, paying per mile, not only are they charging you to drive in your capital city, charging you for the mileage that you drive. And what gets me about this one, right, is that first of all, they shouldn't do it. But second of all, it's going to start out as a small fee. You know, it's going to be something manageable. And then every year they're going to increase it with inflation. To the point where I wouldn't be surprised if we end up paying more per mile than we did overall per year with road tax. That's if they don't replace one. Maybe they'll keep both. It's the government. All they're after is cash. And I think the reason why the government is always after our money is because of stories like this. Because as you can see here, Rupert Lowe wanted an estimate of the average cost to the public purse of each immigration detention bed. Again, pretty simple question. These immigration detention centres, how much does it cost per person? And as you can see down here, I was able to find the spreadsheet. And it says that the average cost per day to hold an individual in immigration detention is now at £118 a day. It's something like 42 grand a year. In fact, what am I on about? Let me just work it out now. Yeah, £43,100. Like, you imagine that. Just to keep someone in a room. Not even a fancy room, just a box. That's it. And it cost £43,000. You imagine 10 people, almost £500,000, just spent on what? Just keeping Sudanese Steve in a room. 43 grand. So you'll be pleased to know that I've asked for a breakdown of that figure. That £118 a day. I want to see how that breaks down, and I want to see exactly where your money's going. But something tells me that the politicians aren't going to be as open when it comes to questions. Because as you can see on screen, that net zero electric vehicle one, that was government hypocrisy. This is just dark. There's no other way to describe it. This is dark. Because this Labour MP wanted to know if they would consider introducing enhanced disclosure and barring service checks as a condition of being a councillor. For those that, I'm sure you do, but for those that don't know, that's a DBS check. That's basically a check that you go through when you go for employment. And your employer wants to make sure that you're not a criminal. And chances are they'll do it once a year. I have a DBS check with my job. There's a very good chance that you have one with yours. And as you can see down there, for local government members, it is currently optional. And I said at the time, I thought to myself in the video, I thought it was optional for councillors? Man, that's a pretty high up position. And they don't need DBS checks? And then I thought to myself, I mean, what other high up positions are there? Such as MPs. Do they need DBS checks? And no, it turns out they don't. MPs don't need DBS checks. And you might be sat there thinking to yourself, clown, doesn't that mean that these people legitimately could be criminals running our country? Yes. Yes, it does. It literally means that. And we would never know. And that's what's sick about it, really, is because these people make the rules, and they make them to suit themselves. And this one right here, not needing DBS checks, because they come into contact, not too much, but they do come into contact with their constituents. You know, they meet kids in the street and they shake hands. So they do come into contact with people. But not only that, they would tell you themselves that they're running the country. They're in charge, but also they might be insane.
This country has gone crazy.